Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something I think we've all struggled with. Let's be real for a second. Why is it that incredibly smart, driven corporate professionals, we're talking people who manage million-dollar budgets and juggle massive, high-stakes projects, literally constantly fail at building simple personal habits after, what, 2 or 3 weeks? I mean, it's kind of the ultimate paradox of the modern worker.
It really is. And the answer isn't that we just need a better habit tracking app or some fancy new morning alarm. Today, we're looking at a completely different, ancient alternative from the source material that fundamentally changes the psychology of discipline. It's a method that takes us out of that exhausting cycle of constantly trying and actually moves us into a state of simply being.
Right, so let's look at the source material's prime example here, a programmer named Raphael. He was stuck in what I like to call the corporate doom loop. Now, on paper, his approach makes total sense for a busy professional. He tried mixing up his workouts, keeping his schedule super flexible, and basically relying on intense bursts of motivation to power through. We are literally taught that flexibility is the key to surviving the modern workday. But the reality? Monday, he's totally motivated. By Wednesday, the internal mental negotiations start creeping in, and come Friday, it's a complete surrender.
Exactly. But the source material points us to a completely different paradigm. If flexibility is the hallmark of modern motivation, well, the Zen monk approach is its absolute opposite. Over at temples in Japan, monks haven't missed their 3:30 a.m. routine since the year 1200 AD. No way are they relying on being flexible or mixing things up to stay engaged. They rely on irreversible commitments, fixed forms, and a total shift in identity. It's a method that doesn't just encourage consistency, it basically guarantees it.
So, at the very heart of this monk approach is this concept called Gyoji. It literally translates to continuous practice without gaps. And the crucial thing to understand here is that this isn't about trying really hard every day or white-knuckling your way through a grueling workout. It is about building a system of frightening, unbreakable consistency. In a monastery, the whole idea of skipping a day just because you're feeling a little tired, it simply doesn't exist as an option in the brain.
Wow, that fundamentally shifts the entire challenge, doesn't it? It's no longer this daily, agonizing struggle. It's just an absolute constant. Because the gap is what actually kills the habit, not a lack of effort. Once you allow even a single gap, that entire structure just starts to collapse like a house of cards.
But okay, I have to push back here for a second because this sounds absolutely great for a monastery. But out here in the real corporate world, we do try to make commitments. We set our alarms, we download the newest trackers, we promise ourselves we'll hit the gym after work. Why do these private promises inevitably fail by Wednesday? It's incredibly frustrating to constantly end up negotiating with yourself over hitting snooze or just skipping a workout just this one time.
That is such a good point. And it comes down to how our brains naturally categorize commitments. When you make a private promise to yourself, your brain immediately flags it as a reversible commitment. Basically, it's safe to break. And reversible commitments will always turn into mental negotiations, the literal split second you feel tired or stressed out from a brutal workday. Your brain knows there are zero real consequences to backing out.
But, according to Harvard neuroscience research, making a behavior public changes that entirely. Your primitive brain actually interprets public failure as a survival threat. Think about it. For our ancestors, losing status in the tribe or being seen as completely unreliable literally meant exile or death. And your brain is still operating on that exact same evolutionary wiring today.
Wait, so by simply bringing the tribe, or, in our case, our peers and family, into the mix, we are essentially hacking our own evolutionary wiring? You're saying we raise the stakes from a mild personal disappointment like, oh well, didn't run today, to a primal life or death survival mechanism in the brain? That is a massive shift in leverage.
And that shift is exactly what Raphael used to break out of his endless cycle of failure. He stopped making those private, reversible promises and made this exact, totally irreversible public declaration. He literally wrote it down, signed it, posted it on social media, and explicitly told his coworkers and his girlfriend exactly what he was going to do.
Right. And what's absolutely crucial to realize here is how that public pressure became his absolute fuel. Picture this. It's day 3. His alarm blares, it's pitch black outside, and he desperately wants to quit. But the stakes have changed. The social fear of having to look his girlfriend and his coworkers in the face and admit he gave up, that he couldn't even make it 3 days, was significantly more painful than just waking up and doing the work. His personal willpower was entirely replaced by public accountability.
Now, relying purely on public pressure isn't quite enough on its own. You also have to eliminate internal friction. And that brings us to the monk's second principle, non-negotiable hours. And look, picking 5 a.m. isn't about some magical productivity hack of being a peppy early bird.
Oh, absolutely not. It's entirely about eliminating time as a variable. Think about how much mental energy you waste just deciding when to do something. Should I do it before work? Can I squeeze it in after lunch? Maybe right before bed? Every single time you ask those questions, you are literally burning precious glucose. You are draining your mental energy just debating the schedule. Locking it in at 5 a.m. means the world is completely asleep, your inbox is totally quiet, and that entire exhausting time debate is instantly silenced.
But fixing the time still leaves one major loophole for your sneaky brain to exploit. It will just start negotiating what to do. Raphael found himself literally standing in his living room at 5 a.m., draining his energy just deciding between reading first, doing push-ups, or meditating.
Right, and that exact mental negotiation is why Zen Master Dogen taught that forms must be fixed. Raphael had to lock down an immutable sequence, 20 push-ups, 10 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of reading. The exact same order every single day. You literally have to eliminate the what entirely, so your brain has absolutely nothing left to negotiate. It just follows the blueprint.
Okay, but doesn't a rigid routine like that just get incredibly boring? I mean, in the corporate world, in the fitness world, we are constantly told we need to shock the muscles or mix things up to stay engaged and avoid plateaus. Variety is supposed to be the spice of life, right?
Well, that is actually one of the biggest myths the source material tackles. We think variety keeps things interesting, but variety is actually where consistency goes to die. Every single time you change what you're doing, you force your brain to make micro-decisions. And every small decision in a routine is a tiny crack where your old lazy patterns leak right back in. Routine completely removes those variables. Sure, it might feel a bit robotic at first, but that rigid predictability is exactly what automates the execution.
Okay, let's really pressure test this in the real world. How does this rigid, what the source calls a personal ego lockdown, actually survive the sheer chaos of a high-pressure corporate life? Perfect conditions just do not exist. What happens when you have a brutal 4 a.m. airport run, or you wake up violently sick, or a massive client crisis keeps you trapped at the office until midnight?
That right there is the ultimate test, because the all-or-nothing mentality kills way more habits than laziness ever could. When we hit a snag and think, well, I can't do my full 20 minutes today, so I'll just skip it, we create a gap. And remember, the absolute foundation of Gyoji is practice without gaps.
To really understand how to survive that chaos, consider this brilliant metaphor. A river never stops flowing during a drought. It might be reduced to a tiny, pathetic trickle, but it never stops. The very moment it stops, it's no longer a river, it's just a memory of where the water used to be.
Oh, I love that. It perfectly captures Dogen's teaching that practice doesn't require perfection, it requires continuity. The trickle maintains the neural pathway. It's like the riverbed in your brain. So when Raphael had that crazy 4 a.m. flight, doing push-ups in a cramped airport bathroom was definitely not perfect. I'm sure it was incredibly awkward, but it maintained that crucial momentum. He didn't let the river run dry. He didn't create a gap.
And the way you ensure that continuity is through pre-solutions. Yale research shows that pre-deciding your actions completely removes decision fatigue. When a crisis hits, you absolutely do not want to rely on your prefrontal cortex to figure out what to do, because guess what? It's already totally overwhelmed by the stress of the day.
Exactly. And this Yale research explains exactly how Zen monasteries survive actual floods and earthquakes without missing a single day of practice. They don't call an impromptu committee meeting when the meditation hall floods. They already know well in advance that they will sit in the dining hall instead. It is a pre-programmed automatic response. And we can apply that exact same logic to a corporate crisis.
So let's build this into a really practical tool for corporate life. You basically map out your personal chaos against pre-decided solutions. Think about your most common obstacles. If it's pouring rain and you literally can't get to the gym, you already know you're doing push-ups in your garage. If you have house guests visiting, your pre-decision is a silent workout in the bathroom. You completely eliminate all in-the-moment negotiation under stress. And hey, if you are completely physically exhausted from an 80-hour work week, the obstacle still doesn't win. You just fall back to your pre-decided minimum. Literally just 2 push-ups, 1 minute of meditation, and 1 page of reading. That is the trickle of the river. The obstacle only wins when you fight a battle you didn't prepare for. Pre-solving takes the decision entirely out of your hands.
So if you can use these pre-solutions to survive the sheer chaos for just over 2 months, what is the ultimate payoff for all this rigid structure?
Well, MIT research shows it takes roughly 66 days for the basal ganglia in your brain to completely take over a new behavior.
Right, and at that magical 66-day mark, something incredible happens neurologically.
the behavior transitions from a conscious, draining effort to a completely automatic reflex. You are literally no longer actively deciding to do the work, you are simply doing it.
By day 70 of Raphael's journey, the agonizing need for willpower that he felt way back on day 3, it had completely vanished. Repetition had effectively replaced his willpower. His body learned the exact sequence of push-ups, meditation, and reading the exact same way a dancer learns complex choreography.
It is such a fascinating psychological shift. He was waking up and moving through the sequence like a programmed machine, honestly, often before his conscious mind even fully registered it. The mental friction was entirely gone. He stopped deciding, he just executed the code.
So as we wrap up our analysis in this explainer, this brings us to the ultimate takeaway from the source material. When you combine public declarations, non-negotiable hours, fixed sequences, and pre-solutions, something really profound happens. It's the death of the inconsistent negotiating self.
Yes, you stop being someone who tries to meditate or tries to read more. Trying always implies the possibility of failure. Instead, you undergo a total shift in identity. You give birth to an unbreakable self. You simply become a person who does these things. It's a level of consistency that normal people actually find a little frightening, because it proves that what they think is impossible is really just uncomfortable.
So the challenge for you now is to adapt the Kanji system for your own high-pressure environment. Burn the boats of mental negotiation. Create a framework so incredibly rigid and so public that giving up becomes infinitely more painful than simply continuing. We're going to leave you with this final provocative thought to sit with today. What will your public declaration be? Thanks for exploring this topic with us on today's Explainer. Start planning your unbreakable identity, and we'll see you next time.